Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. In this video, I'm going to react to stupid Yellowstone behavior. Now, I genuinely don't know what we are about to see here. I think it may be people visiting Yellowstone National Park and maybe not behaving as they should, maybe leaving trash all over the place, or I don't know, just committing some faux pas that you're not really meant to do in a national park. So yeah, this video is going to be really cool. I'm someone who would love to visit Yellowstone one day. I think is it in the top 5 or top 3 national parks in the States? Would it be in your top 3? If not, what would be your top 3 national parks in the States that are kind of must-sees, must-visits? But yeah, I think this is going to be fun. Let's do it.
Cheryl, another Yellowstone visitor stuck his head in the Old Faithful geyser.
Yellowstone visitor.
A Yellowstone visitor banned for cooking chickens in thermal hot spring.
Oh, really?
Alright, so we just wanted to have a little fun with this video here. We have read a lot of silly headlines about a Yellowstone visitor did something really dumb. And it reminds us of the Florida
This looks like, are they at Yellowstone?
Man theme, or the Florida Man meme that you're probably familiar with. And we think that a Yellowstone visitor is right up there with Florida Man. So we really wanted to go over 10 Yellowstone visitor stories. None of these are meant to really be vicious and make fun of people necessarily.
Just kind of lighthearted, I guess.
Nor are we covering any deaths that are tragic, okay? So we just wanted to have a little fun at the end of the year.
That's just general human knuckleheaded behavior that we all happen to participate in from time to time.
Yeah,
so,
anybody could do it.
Yes. So number 10, 2016, a couple saw a bison calf that they thought looked cold.
There's something about these two that's kind of cool. Probably like a husband and wife team, you know, making YouTube videos. I think it's kind of sweet.
And they were worried about it, so they put this bison calf in the back of their SUV and drove it right on over to the ranger station. Unfortunately, the herd wouldn't take the calf back. The little guy ended up being euthanized, and it was kind of a sad story. I ranked this one number 10 just because those tourists' heart was in the right spot. The rest of these are kind of self-serving stories, but at least these ones, they had their heart in the right place.
They had to euthanize it. Oh man, really?
Number 9 is in 2020, Apple Maps led people to the wrong town when they typed in Yellowstone to their GPS. So they got up in the morning, typed in Yellowstone to head to the park, and it took them to this little tiny farming community, Driggs, Idaho.
Oh,
this town got so many visitors that on a fence post in the town, they put yellow stones. They got some rocks and painted them yellow and stacked up some yellow stones there so people would see, well, there's Yellowstone. And then they had...
At least they had something to take a photo with, right?
Had a note there saying you're not in Yellowstone. And so this one struck my funny bone. And I really think... Look, there's a lesson here. You cannot just rely on your GPS. You need to really use a little bit of common sense.
And I have to say, this is something that I totally could do. I will never forget the day that Matt came home with a GPS saying he'd found the gadget to save our marriage. Okay.
You have to be careful. Like sometimes, like when you're putting in, have any of you guys, when you're putting in somewhere on like Google Maps or something, and you begin typing and it suggests where you want to go, but at the last split second it suggests somewhere else that's not where you want to go, but you've just absent-mindedly pressed OK, so now it's leading you to somewhere else entirely. That's happened to me at least twice now. So yeah, I've always got to be super careful that when I press OK and choose the destination, it's actually where I want to go.
I really keep an atlas in my truck just so I can get my bearings.
Okay, number 8, drone flown into Grand Prismatic Spring. A couple of guys a guy had his drone, was flying it, and wanted to get an awesome bird's eye view of the spring, but instead it flew right into that spring. And this spring is over 200 feet deep.
Ooh, you're not getting it back. You're not getting it back.
It's super deep, 300 feet wide though. And they have no idea where this drone ended up. They tried flying helicopters over the spring. They've considered a remote control submarine, but to this day, no one knows what happened to the drone. They don't know if it's disintegrated.
200 feet deep and it's hot water. That thing is gone.
if it's still hanging out there, and it is a problem because when things get thrown into the springs or geysers, it can affect them so they're not what they used to be.
Okay, number 7, in 2020, Yellowstone closed at the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic. And somehow a woman snuck into the park and was meandering around the hot springs near Old Faithful, and she backed up and fell into a hot spring and scalded herself.
Ooh.
And she actually got out and drove up the road for a while, and then the park rangers kind of tracked her down, and they had to take her to the hospital.
Oh my God.
And I know that a lot of people are going to be like, that's karma, right, for sneaking in there. And I guess maybe it kind of is. But this backing into a hot spring, like you're looking at something and you just back up and fall into a hot spring, is not actually new. That's been happening ever since the park opened.
Really? Wow.
Okay.
I guess that was kind of poetic justice, I guess, but still, you don't want to hear about people getting, burned and stuff.
Number 6, peeing into Old Faithful. Now, what blows me away about this story is that in 2018, a man was found kind of lollygagging around Old Faithful. He was laying down, he was looking into it. People were getting concerned that he...
Is Old Faithful the volcano? Like, is that it? Is it the opening of the volcano? Is that what Old Faithful is?
ended up peeing in front of everyone right into Old Faithful. But the interesting thing about the story, it's not the first time someone's peed into Old Faithful. No. In 2009, 2 park employees, not rangers, but park employees,
wow,
were fired because they decided to urinate into the Old Faithful geyser.
Okay, number 5, to outdo...
Why would you do that? You work for, the national park. Like, you should, they probably thought nobody was watching.
The urinating is people sticking their head into Old Faithful geyser. So this happened in 2018, and it happened again in 2019. Somebody stuck their head into Old Faithful. If you're wondering, the water inside there is 200 degrees Fahrenheit, and the steam is up around 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And before you think that we're just getting dumber as a society, back in the 1920s, in the decade of the 1920s, there are 10 injuries related to sticking their heads into Old Faithful in that decade. So this stupid behavior has been going on for a long time.
Humans are so weird. Like, there's just certain things that humans do, or we just feel like an urge to do. I can't be the only person who loves the smell of petrol. Like, you guys call it gasoline in North America. Like, do you also love the smell of... Sometimes I think it smells so good that, no, I'm not going to say that much, but it just smells amazing, right? But, it's obviously not edible, or, it's not meant to be. I think the fumes of petrol or gasoline, they're, not good for you. They're not good to inhale. But yeah, whenever I'm at the gas station, I'm always like...
Okay. Number 4, bison-related incidences. Let me tell you something.
That thing is huge.
You don't just go to Yellowstone to view the wildlife. You go to Yellowstone to view the people viewing the wildlife.
That thing is massive. Look at the size of its head.
You don't have to look very far to see stupid human behavior near wildlife. And this year in 2020, a 72-year-old woman was gored by a bison because she was within 10 feet of this bison trying to take a picture. And it wasn't that she just went up to the bison and then backed away. No. She approached the bison multiple times until the bison gored her.
Oh, man.
I mean, and we've all seen the video that's on YouTube about the girl, falling down and playing dead with the bison. I mean, there's just so many bison-related stupid human...
Oh, and then there's one more. The guy challenging the buffalo on the road. So they're stuck in a buffalo jam, and the guy gets out of his car and starts calling on the buffalo. And
yeah, he was challenging the buffalo.
Dude, you've got no chance. You are probably 200 pounds. This thing, to me, looks like 1,000 pounds. About 1,000 pounds, you have got no chance.
But
isn't that Vince McMahon's WWE song? You've got no chance.
The man was fined for more than just challenging the buffalo.
You've got no chance against it.
So we got an open container ticket. He got his seatbelt off ticket.
Okay, number 3 is also happened this year in 2020. A man was charged for ruining federal property when he was digging for treasure in the Fort Yellowstone graveyard. So all sorts of strange things that are going on here. First of all, there's a graveyard in Yellowstone. Okay, that's news. And then
Is there? Wow.
from people that died back in the 1800s when the military was there. And then, why is a man digging for treasure in this graveyard? Well, there was a relatively famous treasure hunt going on for about a decade called the Fen Treasure, and an artist dealer in New Mexico hid a treasure in the Rocky Mountains, wrote a poem, a cryptic poem to tell people kind of where it was, and then just said, okay, go hunting for it. And it was worth about some people estimate $1 to $2 million. So people were hunting all over the Rockies for this treasure for 10 years. Multiple people died while hunting for this treasure.
Wow.
This fellow was convinced it was in Fort Yellowstone and was digging in the graveyard for it.
Okay. Number 2. This is one of my...
To be fair, I mean, I think if such a letter was found today and you could kind of narrow it down to, say, a 5-mile radius, I think a lot of people would go looking for that. There's people that, metal detect now and they've got no clue what they're going to find, if anything. So, yeah, I think a lot of people would do that today.
My favorites. This was 3 adult men, not stupid teenagers, but adult men, ages 40 to 50, like our range, that decided to go camping in Yellowstone and to cook they got a burlap sack, put 2 raw chickens in it, and put it in a hot spring to cook it. Oh. And this was another case where the Yellowstone Rangers were not messing around. Each of those guys got between a $500 and $1,200 fine. They have been banned from the park. Yeah. And they spent 2 of them spent 2 nights in jail.
Wow.
So, yeah, don't cook your chickens in a hot spring.
But how can you enforce a ban unless it's the same person working at the entrance points of the park? And there's probably multiple entrance points to the park, aren't they? Like, it's going to be hard unless you've got his face on the wall everywhere, like in the offices.
Bring your own cookware and heat source.
Most of the people who trespass onto these hot springs or do weird things like flying drones into hot springs get a fine and get banned from the park, and some of them get jail time.
Yep. All right,
Don't
you ready
play
for number
around.
1?
Number 1. This wins the Rotten Egg Award. We're calling it the Rotten Egg Award because Yellowstone smells like rotten eggs sometimes with the hot springs and all that. This year, 2020, you thought the treasure story was over, but it's not actually. So in January of 2020, another man was hunting for that Fen treasure in Yellowstone, and he was convinced it was at the bottom of the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. So in January, he got a snowmobile permit. He rode into the park, and he and a friend, and he rappelled down to the bottom of the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. This is in January when it's really deep winter and heavy snow.
0 degrees.
Yeah, and he ran out of rope, and so he ended up stranded at the bottom of the Grand Canyon.
Oh my!
So they had to call the Rangers. The Rangers came with
a helicopter,
snowmobiles
right?
and helicopters and stuff to save this fellow. And again, the purpose of this video is not to pile on these people individually, or even to get a bunch of comments.
But why would you do that?
Where people are saying, "Oh, there's so many dumb, stupid people out there." It really isn't. I actually read a lot of this guy's story, and he was pretty contrite, but he was really convinced that the treasure was down at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. He ended up having to serve some time, about a week in jail. He got a fine. He got banned from the park for 5 years. The poor guy got coronavirus before he could even serve his time in jail. He was from Illinois, I believe, or Indiana, I believe. And anyway, he actually seemed like a very decent guy. Okay, I'm not trying to pile on him, but that was pretty epic. Rappelling down to the bottom of
It's a hell of a story, to be
the
fair.
Grand Canyon in the winter to find a treasure. I thought that was great.
Yes, and I just think it's the perfect combination. You know, Yellowstone is like geysers, wild animals, canyons, and then you get out in nature and you're free and your inhibitions are gone. And I think something just gets into people when they get into these national
Their brains
parks.
go haywire.
So we want to tell you thank you for watching and,
Fun
and
video.
sharing
Well
a
done,
chuckle
guys.
with us.
That was a really fun video. Really enjoyed it. Well done to those two. Really nailed it. Like the things, I think they were right about what they said, you know, in the closing of the video. Maybe people who, you know, maybe they're city slickers and they get to Yellowstone and something in the air just trips the wires up there in their brains, and decisions that they really shouldn't make, they decide to go ahead with, and they just, you know, put themselves in just the craziest of scenarios. Like the guy who who went all the way down to the base of the Grand Canyon. And I've never been to the Grand Canyon. I've seen pictures and it looks humongous. Like, to save you, they've now had to bring in multiple helicopters, you know, divert loads of resources. People have probably have to leave their posts to come and get you. Just a massive inconvenience. And you had to spend a week in jail. You know, like they said, you had a fine as well. But hey, funny story to tell. You know, a few years down the line, it is a great story to tell at a bar or a party. It is a great story. But yeah, this was a really, really fun video. I can't wait to get to the Yellowstone, man. It looks amazing. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.